examples is the Pine Bush landfill off Rapp Road, where they're planning on expanding it, yet there's an aquifer underneath that could be poisoned forever, and yet they're flaring the gases, which generates other toxic contaminants like dioxins. So landfills have been banned in Europe, and I was over in Israel a month and a half ago, and I see they're still relying on landfills, and it's wrong. It's wrong here. It's wrong in Israel. It's a waste, because we're also putting valuable energy in the ground. Europeans are smart. We've met with the Dutch, for example, in Holland, in Amsterdam, and they have a very efficient system where, yes, they recycle, but they burn what can't be recycled, and they also recover metals, and they make bricks from the ash and whatever. But the interesting thing is, in Europe provides electricity for 27 million people just from burning waste. New York City has been estimated to waste somewhere close to $1 billion, transporting I think 3 or 4 million tons a year of waste to distant landfills. Pennsylvania, Virginia. We know that New York City drives its waste 26 million miles a year. That's 300 times around the surface of the planet, and wastes about 5 million gallons of fuel oil a year, which is absurd. And a lot of this problem is because the environmentalists are thinking that burning is evil. They know the horrible pollution problems we had in the early 80s, because others, especially the state of New York, did not require proper controls, like on the Answers plant, which was a disaster.
So they closed down the Answers plant now?
Yes, yes.
Because it was giving off too much pollution?
Yeah,
That's what the problem
and the
was?
problem was we should have known better. I proposed these advanced controls, which are being used today. I worked with my mentor, Dr. Aaron Teller, and we proposed these advanced controls. But there were, unfortunately, some, let's just say, nasty politics involved, and too close an association at the time between industry and government, and the right controls were not implemented there, and it was a failure. However, you go to Syracuse, you go to Long Island, you go to Poughkeepsie, you see advanced waste energy plants that are clean, meeting the latest standards, without pollution. And so we have examples right here in the state of really doing it right. And we know that we're talking about potentially large quantities of energy. It's been estimated that just in Staten Island they've buried 122 million tons of waste, and that's equivalent in energy to, I think, about 212 million barrels of oil, you know, if converted to energy. And yet the Japanese are smart. They're cleaning up their landfills, mining the waste, converting it to energy, and then they have reclaimed land that they can use for homes, for industry, other uses. It's unfortunate that the opposition to the burning waste has almost become religious. I think some of the radical environmentalists shout the devil burns and the Lord recycles. And I think that comes from the fact that the Hebrew word for hell, Gehenna, is a place, the valley of Ben Hinnom, you know, on the other side of Jerusalem, where in ancient days there were horrible pagan practices and, you know, sacrifices, human sacrifices. It was also the site of an open burning garbage dump. And this is where I believe the Christian concept of the fires of hell come from. And so, unfortunately, that's where burning got a bad name. But as you know, in Judaism, there's also a concept of a holy fire or a clean fire, you know, that we've also know that can exist. And there can be proper burning with the latest computerized controls. We're using these new advanced scrubbing systems, and so you can take a large plant that can burn, let's say, 1,000 tons a day of waste, and the emissions are comparable to a few trucks driving by. And that's achievable now. And we think that we can greatly reduce our dependence on Mideast oils, produced by some unstable nations, some of whom sponsor terrorism, by using more of our energy resources, as Europe and Japan are doing.
If it's so good, why are the governments so reluctant to implement these new innovations in pollution control?
Well, it's not government. There are a lot of companies who want to do this and want to do it right. The same company who originally, for example, designed the Answers plant, but later got a letter from the state of New York that they were not responsible for the final design and operation of that facility because the state took it over and unfortunately didn't follow the best technical advice. That company has a plant south of Boston in Massachusetts, CMass, where there is full control of all contaminants, a lot of recycling, even recovering metals, making floor tiles from the ash, things of that sort. And it's very efficient. So there are a lot of advanced systems like that around that are good examples for us to follow. The problem has always been politics and perceptions, where people are now, some of the environmentalists are now going for idealized solutions. They say we ought to pass resolutions for zero wastes. I don't think that's possible, because no matter how hard we try to recycle and whatever, we still want packaging of our foods, for example, for health and safety. You go to the supermarket, you buy meat or a chicken, you want to make sure it's packaged, it's protected from bacteria, and you can see that it's fresh. So you have plastic wrap, and it's in a plastic pan, and yet not all those plastics are recyclable, but they have a lot of energy that can be used to produce electricity. Those plastics were made from petroleum to begin with, and yet you go to a store to buy a chip for your digital camera or for your computer, and it's a little tiny thing, but it's surrounded by a lot of packaging. Why? So that people don't steal them, right? You can't put it in your pocket.
Of course.
It's the same plastics are full of energy, so why not reuse them? Why put them in the ground to begin with? So I think that there is a balance. We can have recycling, whatever. The environmentalists say we should be composting our waste, but the problem with composting is if you have all these miscellaneous things in our garbage, household cleaners, and even if a woman throws out a bottle of nail polish or nail polish remover or whatever, some waste medicines, things that have expired, whatever, which are chemicals. They're in the waste. They're going to get into the compost. Now, in Israel, they have a process where they drop all the waste and it goes into a big trough of water, and the plastic bags float up, and newspaper is removed, and the heavy stuff is removed at the bottom, and the rest of it, including the kitchen waste and everything, is sort of pulped with water, and it's digested to make methane gas, which is nice, and a compost. That's fine, but I wouldn't use the compost in my garden because it's
coming from chemicals.
Well, you don't know. you don't know. There's no way government's going to test for 50 or 70 chemicals and metals and all kinds of things that could be in there. It's uneconomical. And this is why in Germany they've had hundreds of composting plants, and the farmers will not use the compost on their crops because they're afraid. And on occasion they have found all kinds of nasty chemicals in there, and it's a real problem. But unfortunately, many of these environmentalists are not scientists, and they don't understand this. And it's so we have ignorance and emotion that is ruling, especially in New York City, where there's a very emotional reaction against burning, and it's unfortunate. It's misplaced.
Because burning, people just think the natural, like burning leaves when we were kids, you're not allowed, and just with
uncontrolled burning of anything is dangerous. That's why we tell people smoking cigarettes is dangerous, because the uncontrolled burning produces toxics. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about burning at very high efficiencies, computerized burning, where 99.9% efficient, followed by all these scrubbing systems where the emissions are traced. My mentor built a system in California in 1988, and this was based on 2-stage controls. Today we have 4- and 5-stage controls. And at the time, he took a sample of the gas, and the sample was cleaner than the average air in Los Angeles, that people are walking around breathing. This was in 1988. We've progressed even further, So, but it's hard to explain this to the average person, and that, we're talking about very small numbers, talk about picograms. That's, how small a gram is. Well, that's with 9 zeros to the left, but we have fanatics who say 1 molecule is too much, and it's unfortunate.
So they're holding up the whole project because they think they'd rather just see the landfills. Do they understand that landfills are also?
We're trying to explain it to them, that landfills are terrible, that the average landfill is 100 times worse in terms of global warming alone than these waste energy facilities, because the methane gas coming out is 21 times as potent as carbon dioxide, and it also reacts very quickly in the atmosphere and whatever. So it's hard to tell these environmentalists that intransigence, just awaiting idealistic solutions, zero waste, and all these full recycling schemes, which have never been proven out. We've been recycling for 25 years, and we can only recycle about 1/3 of our waste in reality, for practical and economic reasons. So it's hard to tell them that their attitudes are causing this intransigence. Garbage has got to go somewhere, and the landfills are still doing a booming business. Where in Europe they've shut down the landfills, and they're doing it right.
I think getting rid of them.
Yeah. And they've made amazing progress. I've seen reports from Germany where dioxins have been reduced by 99% with these efficient multi-stage controls. So
it's important. Well, it's important that we're here to get the word out to our, of course, limited audience, but the more you talk about it. Are you on any specific, groups? I mean, are you talking for yourself, or there's, you're part of an advocacy group, or
I'm doing some work with
lobbying group, or whatever?
Yeah, I'm doing some work with the Columbia University's Earth Engineering Center that really advocates proper advanced waste energy technologies, and also telling the story to others. We had an important article in the New York Post, and if you go to Front Page Magazine and just put in the burning issue in the search column, you'll see a key article on the internet that came up that we did last February, and we're planning to also give a paper in a few weeks in New Orleans, Air and Waste Management Association. And in this area, we're going to do another program with Fred Dicker on his radio show on WROW
Right.
in a few months.
About pollution in America.
Yeah, about these issues.
I heard you once why he's an advocate for it, or he understands the issues.
He understands the issues, and he wants to see sound technology used, as I do. And I think that will also provide jobs for people in doing more recycling, making products like recycled products, floor tiles, recycling metals, etc. So I think that we can do a lot, and it's just foolish to put energy resources in the ground. So
And let them rot there and just create more pollution.
yeah,
Right. So the more does Israel have an open ear to you, or?
somewhat. They're.
I always think that in America, maybe they just think. I heard this before, even well, Israel with their water is just there's so much land, so people just say, yeah, well, you know, this place is a big place, but maybe Europe is getting crowded, or not maybe, but it is. Israel is also getting so crowded they don't have that vast amount of land to have this mindset of, oh, just dump it. We have so much resources in this country. What do we have to recycle for? I think that's where the problem. Am I right? I mean, that's the way I see it. People just, you know, we have water here. Come on, it rains all the time, and oh, there's so much land in America and in Europe and in Israel, these smaller countries saying, hey, wait, you know, like you say, Japan, all the countries that you're saying, hey, we have a lot of people here, and there's just not that much land.
Yeah.
We better use every drop of water, every, you know, piece of land to the best economical way we can. And America just doesn't care.
Well, it's not just a problem of our municipal waste, which is the biggest problem, but this is addressed to the doctors and physicians out there. Years ago, we had similar problems with polluting medical waste incinerators, and the environmentalists went crazy. They were shut down, largely in this area. And what are they doing now? They're cooking the waste in these autoclaves to kill the bacteria, but there's still waste drugs and chemicals and other things in the waste, and the stuff is just being dumped in landfills. And this is absurd. The medical community is also at fault for doing this. We cannot ruin our lands and cause this pollution by dumping waste in landfills. And these medical waste landfills also generate methane and whatever, and these toxics that come out. They're all going to leak. The liners will only last so long, and then they break down.
The liners in the ground, you mean?
Yeah, the ones they're putting in. But I
Well,
challenge
what is it made?
anyone to look at these plastic liners, and
That's all they're made of? That's what I was going to ask. What are they
they're
made
plastic. They're vinyl plastic. If a woman throws out a small bottle half full of nail polish remover, it's going to eat a hole right through it. It's absurd. So I think the medical community is doing the wrong thing, not only here but in Israel. You know, people know I fought years ago against a leading Israeli medical hospital for polluting the air with a substandard incinerator, and they subsequently shut it down, and now they're cooking the waste and it's being dumped somewhere. And you don't want to ruin the lands anywhere, the lands of Israel or the lands of New York, whatever, with these horrible landfills. There are better solutions today. Advanced waste to energy, medical waste. They even have a new plasma destruction system that's foolproof and doesn't pollute at all and produces hydrogen gas as a fuel. But unfortunately, where most hospitals want the latest in MRIs and the latest medical equipment, when it comes to dealing with waste, they want the cheapest solution. What they're getting is pollution, and it's unfortunate. And we need to awake the medical community to do the right thing on the environmental side as well.
It's important. So you go to Israel a lot, and are you on the official boards of any?
Well, I mean, I go over there and speak with people in the Ministry of the Environment and the municipal environmental regulatory programs, but it's frustrating because, as usual, it's politics that controls things. You know, politics and that's the problem. Convincing politicians to do the right thing, and you have the opposition of the same type of Greenpeace type folks that are opposing proper technology here are doing the same thing in Israel. It's unfortunate. But we have to have more debates and debate these issues and bring these things to the fore responsibly.
Well, it's important. I mean, glad that you're going out and you're telling people about these different kind of ideas over here, because we can connect it to some kind of Judaism. It's a Jewish idea, but it is also, it says that you're not allowed to waste. Bal tashchis, it's called in Hebrew. Don't waste. You're destroying trees, which is, I guess, an older issue. When it says, people are knocking down all the trees, for example. Say, well, Torah says that also, but it's an all-encompassing idea. You're not allowed to waste anything, and this is interesting. Maybe we can put a new spin on it. It's like, don't waste the waste. That also, and it really makes sense in a Torah viewpoint. Well, I'm sitting back here thinking about it, because everything in the world is good. So you say, well, what about garbage? Nothing good about garbage, and things like that. So, well, wait a minute, here you are coming to one of the lowest things, waste and garbage. Saying, wait, it could be used for a very positive purpose over here. It doesn't just have to be bad like landfill. Just get rid of it, hide it, cover over, get it out of there, and pollute. It actually could be used for a positive experience. So it's a very beautiful idea if you think about it. And I have been thinking about it in a very beautiful, you could be idealistic about that in your way, instead of wasting the waste, using garbage and waste for a positive effect into the environment. It's actually a very beautiful idea, really.
I think it's important. I guess it fits in with Tikkun Olam and our concept of fixing the world and making things better for us and our posterity.
Well, yes, we have one earth, and it's just different attitudes, where the Torah attitude is just being hands-on, like what you're saying, not being passive, just bearing it, or being so pie in the sky. The other extreme is, like you're saying, being so pie in the sky idealistic, like, let's have peace. These are beautiful. Peace is a wonderful thing, but you're so up in the air, you're not being realistic to it. So that's where you come in, where you want to have the good things, but you have to work for them also, and that's the Jewish way. It's the Torah way, where not just sit back and dream and just pie in the sky, like I was saying, just about let's have clean environment, let's make peace, let's have everything wonderful. It's nice to think about it, but you're in a dream state. Yes, it is a good way to achieve. Don't put on the other hand, well, just forget it, we could just do what we want. The middle ground is, let's work for things that are good. And you see, well, it's nothing to talk about. You say the technology is right there. And it's a shame that people don't use it. We say that to so many things. Just the thing, food. Well, what's wrong with the earth? Doesn't produce food. What's wrong with God? People are starving. Well, the earth does provide enough food. It's just people just don't get it together. What are you blaming God for? Here also, the pollution, methods to, get rid of the pollution are there. So what are you blaming God? I mean, He gave you the tools. Can't use them right, then whose fault is that? And
one of the great Jewish scientists who speaks and does programs for Aish HaTorah, Dr. Gerald Schroeder, who wrote The Science of God, that science is a way of explaining Hashem's mysteries and wonders. And he talks about proper applications of science. When you begin to realize that